nasal cavity here, this in white represents bone. This is the nasal septum. Okay, it's made of two different bones that you might remember from 2050. You have the bottom portion is the vomer bone, and this top portion is the perpendicular plate of the ethmoid bone. In blue, oh sorry, let me make sure she can get in too. Come over a little bit, there you go, okay. In blue, this is the cartilage, which is called septocartilage because it's by the nasal septum. So this is like your tip of your nose. All right, just cartilage. All right, let's get rid of that. Now, some sinuses. These are open spaces that are filled with mucous membranes. They also function in lightening the skull. If they were filled with bone, your skull would be very heavy. Okay, here's where they are. You have frontal sinus here, the sphenoid sinus, and here, inside that bone, the holes inside of it would be the ethmoid sinus. Okay, ethmoid sinus.
The actual hole.
Yeah, inside the hole. So, meaning it's not the bone. You need to get into the space where the hole, go through the holes, and then inside that space is ethmoid sinus. Now, there are other sinuses, but that's all you can see on here. Now, the official term for your nostrils is nares. That's the scientific term, and that's what I want you to use, not nostrils. It's nares.
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 N-A-R-E-S.
These things that stick out, projections, are the nasal conchae. And they're bits of bone covered in tissue that stick out from the sides, project into the nasal cavity. So you have them on each side. There are three. The top one is the superior nasal conchae, middle nasal conchae, and inferior nasal conchae. Now, they create turbulence in the air you breathe. So what happens is when you breathe in through your nose, it makes the air move and weave through these channels. So it simply allows more time to warm and humidify air before it goes into your respiratory system. So it actually is an added benefit of breathing through your nose that you don't get breathing through your mouth. Next, this hole. This hole is the auditory tube, and it allows the inside of the eardrum, that pressure to stabilize with the pressure outside in the external environment. This is the pharyngeal tonsil. Okay, now this in white represents the hard palate, okay, the hard roof of your mouth. It's made up of two different bones. This bone is the maxilla. This bone is the palatine bone, where you see that line. Okay, just that little section is palatine bone, hard palate. All of this is the soft palate, which doesn't have any bone. It has skeletal muscle, fat, and some connective tissue. Now, the soft palate ends in the tip, specifically called the uvula, the thing that hangs back in the back of your throat.
So the tip is the uvula.
Tip is the uvula. Now, the function of the uvula is when you swallow, it flips back to cover the opening to the nasal cavity. So food and drink don't go through the nasal cavity because this is an opening and it could happen. And if you've ever laughed and were drinking something and it shot out your nose, simply meant the uvula did not close in time, and some of that fluid also got forced upward. Okay, we did that. There was one, and I had forgotten with you guys. Posterior apertures. Okay, is right behind the nasal conchae. It's just this area. It's not like a structure or anything. It's just an area.
Okay.
Posterior apertures right behind the nasal conchae, and then when you go on, now you are in the nasopharynx. Nasopharynx, part of the pharynx, are three parts. The one by the nose, nasopharynx. Okay, so you have nares, the nasal conchae, posterior apertures, nasopharynx. Okay, I told you that, the tonsil, right? Okay, all right, that's everything that you can see on this model.
You said this is tonsil?
Yep, this is the pharyngeal tonsil,
What is this oral thing?
auditory tube.